Great. Hey, thank you. Excellent stuff. Thank you for the introduction. Let's get the slides going. So, here we go. All right. Let's wait for a few more minutes. I'll get everybody here. Interpreter good to go? Yeah, fantastic. Okay, I suppose we can start. Let's go. Okay, so hey, thank you very much for joining me and thanks for inviting me to speak. It's great to help all of you to explain to your children what is it like to be a tester. And I'm telling this story through the book Reconciled, and I'll also explain some ideas about how children learn, how adults can learn based on that. We also have a brief exercise for all of you to enjoy. So let's see what we have. So moving on, as heard, I have many hats. I've been in software testing for 25 years now. Latest really cool stuff which is even missing from here. It's so new. I just won the Eurostar European Software Testing Excellence Award just 2 weeks ago. So I feel really good about that. Great recognition. But let's move on from my slide. So my backgrounds are many. I work for Knowit for 20 years now. Currently 4,000 people. We just acquired Cybercom, big company as well. My background from ISTQB, biggest software testing association in the world with 4 million exams. So I've been very privileged to be in the association and serving in many key roles. But to the dragons and to children, so this is the agenda. As promised, the two different angles into the topic, and I think at the end you'll be able to explain testing with your children as well. Looks like I have a different exercise in this speech than I have here, but well, I'll explain you when we get there. So let's start with the book project recap. So it already started when I got the spark to tell my own story. So I participated in James Whittaker's creativity and storytelling class. Really excellent training, and I also wanted to tell a story after that. James told so many good stories, and he even has his storytelling manifesto, which you can read there. So my story is about testing made accessible and understandable for children so that they can learn testing, start learning testing. Of course, it continues, but start learning testing at young age. So that's my story. And why should we explain testing to children? Now, I think it starts from the fact that we need more software development that includes testing in the world. There are already lots of coding initiatives. There are programming schools, classes in schools. There are programming clubs. There are books about coding, games about coding. Really, I really appreciate all of that effort. But of course, from testing point of view, it's always that coding part, and testing is there implicitly. It could be there more. I think we really need to explain that software testing can be a profession of its own. It can be much more than just trying out your software, noticing it doesn't work, fixing it. It's more than that. IT industry needs more and more coders and more testers as well. And this need will just increase over the next years. And so we need to be proactive and train people at the early age. So start telling about software testing ideas to children at early age. And of course, you can do it in many means. My natural solution was to write a book because I like writing books. So this is the second book I am now writing or wrote. And well, let's see more about how it actually happened. So the idea that a testing book for children got invented by me when I read that Linda Liukas is publishing a coding book for children of kindergarten age called Hello Ruby. Really lots of publicity about that. I didn't read the book that time, but I realized that there's something about telling children about IT concepts early on, and I, of course, from testing point of view, immediately thought that they actually need to explain testing as well. Some more, a testing focused book would be really good. And that's something I could write. It took some time before I had time. Writing a book takes time, and a natural time became when our family decided to take a leave from work, a sabbatical year, just go to Lapland, enjoy nature. And one of the goals I set for that year was to write this book about testing for children. I was thinking about the topic, what could it be, how could I explain it, and over the end of 2019, the idea really, after some thoughts came to me. I wrote the first chapter in December of 2019, and over the next half year I piloted the chapters, had lots of pilot readers reading them, both children and adults, got great feedback, got good ideas how to make it even better. In summer of 2019, I started looking for a illustrator. I found a really great illustrator, Adrian Zell. With her we iterated how a dragon should look like. So something I would like that would fulfill my vision of how they would look like in the story, and also something that she enjoyed drawing, and we found a really excellent style. I ran a crowdfunding campaign to fund the illustration, and also got lots of excellent pre-orders through that from people who want to be readers. In December and January, I then translated the book to English, because from the start I had decided to publish both in Finnish and English at the same time. So I was also looking for publishers. At the same time, I found Avain to be my Finnish illustrator, and Austin McCauley to be my English illustrator. The Finnish book was published in December 2020, and the English version in July 21, so just recently. To go with the publishing, actually already the crowdfunding, I also ran a donation campaign, so we actually got a really great number of associations and companies donating books to schools, and big thank you to all the donating people. So the book is at my company, Reckons Out Oy, so I set up a company also for this project, and I'm the author, Kari Kakkonen, and then I have Adrian Zell as my great illustrator. There's also a PowerPoint presentation, which is 1 to 2 hours of class time for any teacher in the world to use. There are many versions. I'm looking for volunteers to translate that to many different languages. Also, Lucian has translated kindly to Polish, so it's already there available. And I think the number of languages for this free presentation is just going up. So really good and great thank you for all the volunteers for translation. So that's a book project recap. Let's think about the fantasy. How does fantasy work when we want to explain software testing? Well, the big analogy is that dragons are usually harassing villages and castles. They're stealing food, destroying villages and castles, and obviously, knights need to fix that problem. Knights are famous for fighting dragons. They can kill dragons or vanquish dragons, whichever way you want to get rid of the dragon. In a similar fashion, in software you have defects. So dragons are defects. You have different types of defects. You have different types of dragons, and in software you need to have coders and testers to find and remove the defects. So those are the two main analogies, and then with those I actually realized that it's quite easy to explain through a story, and also after the story goes on, then also always explain to IT or testing terms what actually happened. So it's interesting to have a story going, and then learn those testing concepts as you go. And then you have exercises. Of course, you need to practice this stuff as well. That's a power of a story. So I have a few analogies here explained as example. So this one here is an annoying dragon. So a red dragon, difficult to find, but quite easy to get rid of once you find it. It doesn't really fly. It has only small wings. It breathes fire. It likes to eat lambs. Now, what could this be? What kind of defect could this dragon be? Well, that's a mineral dragon. So hard to find. It's obvious to notice it's there, but it's hard to find. Once you actually locate it, it's often very quickly removed. You just change even one character in your code, and that's it. It can be, of course, more difficult, but very often it's like that. So that's one analogy. Also, I have lots of robin dragons there. So robin dragons can be different color, green, gray, sometimes easy to find, sometimes hard, sometimes easy to get rid of, sometimes hard. Some fly, some don't. The common factor is that they all steal food and treasure. So they harass the people in villages somehow. Now, so what comes in many shapes? Well, obviously the functionality defects. Most of the defects in software are related to functionality. Something works in a bit wrong way or really doesn't work at all. So some defects are severe, some are not that severe. Some are similarly easy to remove, some are hard to remove. So different dragons, different defects. So functionality defects are mostly out there. I also have some other special dragons. This one is a mean dragon. It's black, flies, hard to find, also quite hard, medium, hard to get rid of, breathes lots of fire, steals food, and the key thing is that it does all of this without being detected. Now, what could that be? Well, that is obviously a security defect. The color may be hinted you there, black, black hats, security, criminals, really people who break into systems, steal information, sell that to somebody else, make money with criminal activities. So obviously you need to also remove the security defects or the vulnerabilities in the software so that they cannot be exploited by some bad people. Another example, underground dragon. So this is brown. It doesn't fly, it actually crawls in tunnels. Through the tunnels it makes its way to some basements where you can find, or cellars where you can find food and easily eat. What can this be? Underground dragon. Well, it is something that's under the software, so hardware. So hardware or device related problems. So a tester could first think that it's just a software problem, a defect in software, but under more investigation, sometimes the problem is in the hardware. There is a faulty part there. You need to remove that faulty part. Can be easy or can be difficult depending on how crucial this faulty part is. So that's an underground dragon. Also, there are nice dragons. Why? There are many reasons. One reason is that lots of my pilot readers, including my own son, said that dragons are nice. Dragons are great. They are fun. I like dragons. Why do we need to kill all the dragons all the time? And that's true. Yeah, there are also nice dragons. And so I was thinking, so what can be a nice dragon? What can be a useful defect in software? And that would be a defect that gives some extra information to testers. So I've created a nice dragon, which is obviously easy to find and remove, but you really don't want to do that because it's a nice dragon. Of course, it also eats animals, but it helps people. It doesn't harass people. So that's a defect, seeding defect. So a defect that is put there on purpose. So the idea is that somebody, coder typically, puts in many defects, seeds defects into the code. And then the idea is that once you have tested enough, once you have found all these seeded defects, then that also means that you have found all the other defects in the software. So it's really actually a test coverage mechanism or method. And well, it does help finding the other defects there. So that's a good, nice dragon. Obviously, there are also those people. So knights nicely represent both coders and testers. Very nicely, actually, because in agile teams you have coders and testers working together. They are one team. Somebody has the strength of coding really well. Somebody has the strength of testing really well. That's how it goes. And so testing is really the locating the defect, and the coding part there is removing it after locating. So knights can have different roles, and well, that's what knights do. So testers are knights in short. But also, of course, other people can also find defects, and so those are users. So the users of software are, in the story, children and other villagers. They can help in testing on purpose. They can find the dragons. They can locate a dragon, see a dragon approaching a village, call for help. Knights come and help and actually kill a dragon. So that's what happens also in the real world with users testing in, let's say, pilot phase or beta testing phase. Hunters are a type of villager that actually can also kill a dragon. Sometimes they can also, of course, call for help for the knights if needed, but sometimes they manage on their own. So this could be really technical support, IT support, people who are operating with the system, making sure it runs. Sometimes they can fix the system, sometimes they also need help. If they are together with the developers, the development team, they would be a DevOps team, which is also a nice analogy. Then, of course, we have lords and ladies, and these would be the people who pay for the software, who order the software. So that would be product owners or management. And in the same fashion, in the story, you have lords or ladies of the castle who maintain the troops of knights, who are then defending the villages and castles from the dragons. There are also sages who know a lot, and they help the knights and villagers with their knowledge. In the same fashion, in IT, you have experts in different topics like usability or security or performance, and this knowledge can be very useful to teams who can't have all the possible skills, so they need help sometimes, and this is the help they can get from the experts. Right, so those are the main comparisons. So I hope these give you ideas on explaining in nice terms what is testing also to your children. In the next bit, I've got an exploratory testing session coming up. Basically, I just explain this, and if you like to do this, you can. If not, just listen to me when I go on after this one. So what you can do is something very similar that I do with the classes to children, and that I also have embedded in the presentation that the teachers can use for free with their classes. So they can run exploratory testing sessions. So all you need to do is, name an angle that you want to use. State of mind. I want to try to find something that doesn't work, something that is just strange, something that is just slow. It needs to be very simple. So this is simply put exploratory testing. This is what children understand. So choose one of those angles. Go to that website. So I cooperate with a number of startup companies. This one is very new. It's only in Finnish at the moment, but I think you can get the idea. So that's an air condition reporting software. So basically, you can just click the only button there, and then you have a map. Sorry, you don't have a map. First, you have some clouds. Nice cloud with big smile, and then bad clouds with not that big smile. So if you think the air quality around you at the moment is good, click the big smile, and then you after that you'll be able to see the number of different opinions of air quality on the map. So that's the main functionality. There's actually not much more at the moment, but give it a try. Use your angle of testing, see what you can find. If you find something, you can use the QR code there. So just take a picture of that with your mobile phone. That takes you to the same link in Padlet that you can see on the lower right corner there. So Padlet is then a shared workspace where you can upload pictures or text. So if you then find something interesting that you would like me to tell to the startup company who created this great software, I can also pass on this possible defect that you may find. Anyway, you get to practice a little bit of exploratory testing. So give it a try. I will go on. You can do this testing when I go on, or just listen to me as I said. So moving on. So I've asked lots of questions from book readers, and obviously I was very much interested, especially in teachers. So I've had lots of discussion with teachers verbally. I also tried to collect some quantified data. So I ran a survey about the different aspects of how you use a book with kids. All in all, I recap that it seems that the age of 10 to 15 is the best age for reading this sort of a book, and also looking at this sort of presentation about testing, and work for other people. But the biggest interest based on my survey and feedback is 10 to 15. Let's look at some graphs. One question I've asked is where do you use this? And so teachers answered that mostly actually on coding classes. So many schools actually teach coding already at early age. And an obvious fit for testing topic is the coding class. But interestingly, it also works to any other class, really almost any other class. Math, game design, robotics, mother tongue, arts, so drawing. I think because lots of exercises are about drawing something, imagining a dragon and defects and drawing, etc. And so it's all about the storytelling approach that works with different types of classes. Then I also asked which topics in this book concept and the presentation was the most interesting to the children, and I think it's a little bit answers to my expectations. So I chose the approach of dragons and a nice fantasy story because I thought that would be interesting, and the results here say that the dragons and the story are the most interesting parts. Exercises are next most interesting, so doing something hands-on, not a surprise. And then you got ICT in general, so not testing but ICT in general. That's also an interesting finding. So I think that's true. Your testing is always part of the software development project. It's not something on its own. It's a very important topic. You need to remember it. You need to be, some people will be good at it, professionals. but it's really about being in an ICT project. Another question was where, is it a class or club or homework? Where do you read a book? And mostly it's actually in the classes. So, reading it together and discussing it together. That seems to be the thing. All right. Of this, I can generalize that combining different learning approaches works best. So when you have drawing exercises, so you can actually use your hands, try something, listening or reading, so understanding the story and the testing content. Understanding the content through analogies, so it's more interesting and also more clear often when you explain something through the analogy between fantasy and testing. And then with trying out the testing, actually testing, exploratory testing, that is interesting. So this combination brings things to children in the best way. So from here, again, generalizing how children learn, they learn in multiple ways. Storytelling is obviously very interesting always. Kids also like to name their idols and imitate them. They like to play games. They like to explore. Repetition, memorizing things is also good. Setting boundaries is important. So there are many ways how children learn all in all, whatever topic. It's a great thing to remember, and then you can utilize that. Lots of research also points out to the fact that you need to have more than one learning strategy. It's good to combine. That's how people learn. You can't only listen to something, for example. You need to use many different approaches together, and that's how things go. Then kids will learn better. Still thinking about storytelling. So if you could think storytelling is just one approach, well, okay, yeah, it is, but also storytelling works for different kinds of learners. So it's not only listening to something or reading, depending how you approach a book. So if you're a visual learner, you can think of pictures of how things are going, or as a book has pictures, you can also see the pictures. Auditory learners can listen to the words and the voice of somebody who is reading a book aloud, like a teacher or a parent. Kinesthetic learners who usually need to write something, they can actually make emotional connections to a story. So storytelling actually is very useful. The information is from that link there. Thinking about what the research says about learning of different ages, the points there mention that complex learning actually starts at age of 11 or 12. And so actually it matches quite nicely to my findings from teachers and the surveys that 10 to 12 is a good age to focus when you want to start explaining testing concepts to children. So they are a bit complex, and so that's a good age to start. That said, I've actually personally read a book also to my son, who was at the time 7, and it worked nice. It was interesting. I read through everything he was asking for more, and I basically we flew through the book very, very quickly. So it works, but it's a different question when kids actually understand these things. And I think this research is correct. 11 years is a good age, average, of course. All right, so out of that, I'll put together a list of 6 ways how children can learn testing. So first one is this fantasy example. So, have an example of something that interests children and explain through that example, that story, how it is in ICT work. There are dragons, you need to remove them. Defects, you need to remove them. Then another thing is being clear and concise. So for children, it's even more important than for adults. So complex topics can usually be brought into simple terms, and then you can explain this thing very clearly. Another thing is emphasizing more the exercises than the theory. So, and that's the kind of a structure I have in the free presentation. Mostly exercises. Another thing is the senses. You need to have all the senses you used. Drawing, kinesthetic, listening, seeing, talking about it. Next one is about sharing exercise. This is a great thing. I think it also brings lots of fun. So doing things together, showing to others what I did as one child. So for example, Padlet for sharing findings or sharing your drawings works really nicely. And the last bit here is trying immediately. If you learn a testing concept, try it. Try to test with that concept and that idea. And you can test anything. It doesn't need to be a buggy software. It can be something on your own mobile phone. All right, so I've taken all of that into adult world as well. So those 6 topics can actually work in the adult learning as well. So you can use examples and analogies. They don't need to be fantasy. It can be some other analogy. You still need to be clear and concise. You still need to do lots of hands-on exercises. You also need to use all the senses. More senses is better. It's good to share. Common workspace is a great idea. And it's good to test, don't just learn, actually test. And through testing, you learn more. You actually learn the topic properly. So in the next 6 slides, I'll explain these a little bit more. So a good analog or a good parallel for adults is something that is common to them. So, think about the hobby that works for your audience of adults. Think about the sport, for example. Here I chose the picture of Scrum in the sports of rugby, which is the name of the agile methodology or approach called Scrum. So it's a group of people together. Great analogy already. Concerning the clear and concise communication, for testing purpose, you need to be able to state why do you want to test something in a certain way. What is the big picture of testing? So it's easy to get lost in the detailed test cases and all these tests and all these defects. Don't do that. You need to do it as well, but you need to be able to explain to the rest of the team, to stakeholders, why are you testing? And when you teach testing similarly, why are you testing in a certain way? Why don't you test in this other way? Why should you choose the way you are learning at the moment? So keeping it clear and concise, communicating a lot, very important. This one is about the hands-on approach. So lots of the learning we do is by reading and listening to speeches like conference, speech today. Still, if you really want to learn this stuff, try it on. Let's have an exercise. That's why I also had the exploratory testing exercise moments ago with you. So actually try something and you'll learn in a much different way. So if you think of the point of view of testing class, always add an exercise there, some sort of exercise, and learning will be so much better. Hands-on learning. Next one is about all the senses. So lots of the discussions we do these days is just discussing. So we have the audio. We could have also the video, but especially in the COVID times, sometimes people get bored of the video and it's only the person who is talking who is keeping a video on. Much better would be to have all the videos on and actually see people face to face. But even that's just 2 tendencies. Other thing is reading, so have the slides there to back you up. Then it's sharing parts, so talk to others. Also, communicate, verbalize what you learn. What's in it for me? What's in it for us? Have these discussions. They are very important. They actually make the learning happen. Before that, it's theoretical knowledge. And if possible, try it. So use your hands, meaning test something, draw something, keep some notes. Even if you think that you remember what you heard, you remember better if you write it down. Even if you just throw your notes away after you wrote them. But that act of writing helps you remember better. And in whatever fashion you like. Some people draw mind maps, some people keep notes, some people draw pics, whatever you like. Just keep notes. That's a good idea. Next one is about real-time status. I find this especially really useful, maybe one or maybe the best way to teach testing for me. So use a group memory, have people sharing what they learn all the time. In the exercises, show to others what you are doing. So I'm personally using in also my classes for Erlots, the Mural platform. There are other tools as well, like Miro. I also like mind maps a lot. Whatever it is, the common term is group memory. So have some place where everybody can write, and also where everybody can see the result of the exercise or planning workshop or whatever. So it is there. It's not, interpretation, it's like that or that. No, it's there. You can see it in the group memory, in the mural, in the whiteboard. That's our common understanding of what we just learned or discussed. Final one is start testing immediately. So don't just learn these new things, apply them on the next day or the same day in your real work, in your real team. Pair up to different people, try different other learning mechanisms, get a startup company software somewhere. There are lots of small companies who appreciate the help of testing, and then you can also learn testing and they will get ideas, feedback, defect reports even, and that's great. So just start testing, use that new idea that you just had. Great. With that, thanks very much. Really great to be here with you. If you are more interested about that, I got a blog, dragonsight.com. I also have pages on all of the social media. I'm happy to link to anybody also on my personal LinkedIn profiles and etc. And get the book from that link if you're interested. So thanks again.